Hi there, everyone. Meteorologists Andrea Michaels here, and of course, Tony Martin.
Howdy.
With Beyond the Chill, this is the deep dive into our winter weather forecast for the season ahead, 2025 to 2026. But we also will start briefly by taking a look back at last year.
Yeah, a little recap from last year. La Nina. A lot of times, you hear about El Nino and La Nina and some of the bigger things. Even if you're not really into the weather terms, you hear about those two a lot. And last year it was a weakish La Nina, which played a big role in what happened in January.
It did. And I mean, I know you weren't here until February of this year with us, Tony. So I will say we did not anticipate how cold January was going to be. We knew a La Nina was going to surface, but it kept getting delayed and delayed. So late that by the time it could kind of get its hands on the pattern, January just ended up being too cold.
And so cold, fascinating that parts of southern Virginia, like Virginia Beach, the Outer Banks, parts of those regions got more snow than we got here in especially like York and Lancaster counties for the whole season.
Yes.
It was because it was so cold.
Yes. And luckily, I'll show them work here. It didn't make or break our snow totals, but yeah, the temperatures obviously, thanks to that cold January, just went goodbye because of that. Here, let me back this up. I think I got a little too excited here and I clicked a little too much. But bringing this up here, yes, it just unfortunately just did not work out for our temperatures. It was just too below average in January, and as a result, we fell way short of our temperatures. But the snow...
Green check for the snow.
Yes, we still hit our ranges. Harrisburg ended up with 15.4 inches of snow by the time all was said and done, and much of the rest of our area fell into that range. I believe my exact range was 9 to 19 inches, if I'm remembering correctly. Kind of meant to encompass the entire area, but mostly Harrisburg, and that's a look at how those numbers break down.
And maybe this year, December could be a little different.
Yes, December, a little bit of a slow start this time around, but a lot of factors. It was hard to get the chill in until closer to January, but once we got that chill in January, my goodness, we just went with it. And here's a look at how average temperatures did. Tony, if you want to talk about the January in particular.
Yeah, I mean, a solid almost 5 degrees below normal for the month. That's substantial.
It is.
You see 1.3 below. You think, well, okay, that's pretty good because, again, you're factoring in the entire month.
Right, so it doesn't make or break you.
Right, but almost 5 below normal, that's huge. And certainly if any precipitation was to come through, it would have been snow or sleet, freezing rain. But that, again, that snow line was all the way down into the beaches.
Sometimes you have the cold, but you don't have the storm track. So, I mean, maybe it was a little bit of luck for our snow forecast too, but at the very least, I mean... Yeah.
And now we got back-to-back weakish La Nina coming in for this year.
This time, though, it is already here.
Yeah.
It's not a question of waiting, and it is going to be a brief stay. We're expecting it to turn more neutral by either the end of January, it looks like February, with the recent projections that just came out in the last week, at the absolute latest February.
Sort of hitting its stride now.
Yes.
And not all La Ninas are the same.
No.
This is more of a broad brush effects of what typically happens. And again, there's so many other factors that go into it. But it does favor some wetter than normal conditions up through the Ohio Valley and trying to move into Pennsylvania. You match that up with the occasional bout of cold air, and you could end up having some heftier snowfall rates.
Yes, and there are a lot of factors that we're watching this year that in particular are going to help tilt the scales towards us, despite the fact that, yes, La Nina seasons do end up, bringing in that warm air and you get that storm track that seems a little less favorable. The Pacific Decadal Oscillation, one of those.
Also a piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
And this year, after we were looking at this, I remember back talking in probably September, maybe early October, and this part of the Pacific, the Gulf of Alaska, was really warm.
Yes.
And that has since shifted well to the south and southwest. Cooler air, or cooler water, that is, compared to normal, all the way up against the Pacific Northwest coast.
And this is the negative phase specifically of the PDO. The effects of a negative phase, and it's been so strongly negative for some time. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the strongest negative phase on record since we've started recording it anyway. The effects do mirror La Nina in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so more or less, I guess, solidifies the pattern.
Yes.
I guess. I mean, the Pacific Ocean, biggest body of water on our great planet. So certainly going to have a big role in what we see downstream here across the United States.
Yes, and we'll talk a little bit more about the temperatures in the Pacific in just a second. But there is another factor that we're keeping a close eye on this year. Now, last year, I do want to say, the polar vortex was strong, but it was very unusual. They weren't quite working, the polar vortex wasn't quite working in tandem with the troposphere.
Right. And this also has become a buzzword
Yes.
over the last couple of years.
Yes.
The polar vortex is coming. The polar vortex,
Often
run
misrepresented too. It's not every burst of cold air or
Right.
Yeah.
And what's weird is the weaker it is up over the pole,
Yes.
the more influence it has down here.
Exactly. You can get those chunks of cold air. What happens when the polar vortex kind of is weaker, you get that wavier jet stream. And with that wavier jet stream, it does actually allow the opportunity for those colder chunks of air to slide down a little bit more towards us. And we're going to have that set up this year, this time around.
Another piece of the puzzle.
Yep. So that's why we think, despite the fact of a really strong PDO and, of course, a weak La Nina kind of working in tandem, we still do think we will get cold at times.
Yeah, and the potential's there. The ante's up to even have some brutal shots of cold air come in.
Yes.
Maybe as cold as last year, maybe even a little bit colder than that. And for our area, we don't have to worry about it as much. But downwind of the Great Lakes could have some epic snowfall coming up, even in December.
Yes.
This year.
I mean, I think their lake effect is really going to show up.
Yeah.
For sure. In fact, I know I used to work up in Binghamton at the very beginning, early years of my career, and that was a really strong La Nina year. We had record-breaking lake effect snow up there. I remember it. I can't remember if it was my first or my second year there. I spent my time there from, I think it was 2010 to 2012, so it was one of those seasons, but it was impressive.
Yeah.
Yes, they got slammed.
It'll probably end up being a national news-making lake effect year. Somebody like Buffalo or Cleveland or Erie, Edinburgh up there in Northwest PA will get more than enough snow.
They're going to cash in for sure this year and maybe get more than what they wanted. Okay, I said we were going to come back to temperatures, sea surface temperatures. Let me just back that up right there.
There's the cool pocket.
Yes, the cool pocket that has already started to surface, much like what we would expect.
2 months ago, this was not here.
Yes.
And there was questions about how that would play out for the winter. This has come full bore now, and what should transpire downstream is you end up getting some ridging that forms up here in the Pacific Northwest, and that will tend to open the door from what's happening in in Alaska, to come up over the ridge and down into our part of the world.
Yes, and then another part of the temperatures that we're looking at too is you always have to look at the North Atlantic.
Yes.
For our area, specifically Greenland. And we're in a good position as far as that goes if you're a snow lover.
If you like winter, it's good.
The red is a good sign.
Yeah.
That is above average temperatures, which tends to favor what we call blocking up near Greenland, a blocking area of high pressure that would, when you get that ridge, help suppress the cold to the south. Like that image you saw with the polar vortex, that's how you get that pattern. So those two working together will definitely help us cash in on some cold.
Yeah, if you are not a fan of winter, you do not want to see this.
Yeah,
this is like red alert.
You want that to be blue,
yes.
more or less.
Because, what you do, you put a high here.
Yep.
And also over Hudson's Bay. You get a high to form over this early on in the season, too. And, like you said, the blocking pattern, everything cannot move out. So the cold air, again, with that ridge back here,
has no
forced
choice
to go on the west side of this ridge and right toward us.
So what we do is look at years that are similar when it comes to these patterns. There is one more pattern I almost forgot that we do need to talk about, though, that might be worth noting. Also, quickly, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit. Warm temperatures again in the Atlantic, but as you noted, Tony, when we were chatting beforehand, not as warm. We had wasn't it record-breaking warmth the last 2 summers and leading into the winter season the last 2 years?
Big change.
Really incredible.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, you notice all the blue and purple
Yep.
along the coast, which means cooler than normal. And that plays a role with nor'easters. As they come up the coast, you take a storm that has a lot of warm water, you flood the coastal plain and even back into our area with all the somewhat warmer air up above, let's say 5,000 feet up, that could make or break your rain snow line, and you could have a 35-degree rainstorm as opposed to a 32-degree snowstorm. And of course, the difference there is tremendous.
Yeah, so we do think that, this is all going to help despite the La Nina and the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, the PDO. We think it's not going to be the milder and, although, okay, last season wasn't a milder winter, but the years before that pretty mild, and just kind of starving for snow, for lack of better words. We think this will be different than the last several years in general.
Yeah, the ante's up for maybe a traditional winter.
Yeah. I think average would be a good word for it, average.
Which, if you compare, let's say, out of the last 10, all of a sudden you start getting an average winter, and it seems like it's bad outside.
Yes.
It's all about perspective.
Exactly. And everything relative to, of course. Now, this is one pattern, the Madden-Julian oscillation, or the MJO, that we also wanted to talk about, too. I'll let you take the reins on this one because I'm pretty new to learning this one, although I will say this past January was a great one to learn off of for sure.
This is a huge driver in weather, and it's all year. It's not just during the wintertime months, but these different phases mean different things different times of the year. A phase 3, 4, 5, this end of the pie chart, so to speak, or even into a 6, if you're going into those phases, let's say now, into going into December, January, February, it typically means that it's going to be fairly mild in the eastern U.S. And this all deals with how much convection, thunderstorms, rain is going on over into the Indian Ocean. This year, as of right now, mid and late November, we are sitting in phase 6 and rotating. This rotates counterclockwise. So we're heading toward phase 7, which is typically a colder phase in December. That also solidifies our forecast of seeing some colder weather coming up. And if we continue the full rotation into 8 and 1 going into January, and so we could be shaping up for some bitter cold air coming up here down the road.
And we did spend a lot of time this past January in phases 8 and 1. It was a really, for me, as somebody who's new to this and learning a little more over the years, it was a good season to learn about how phase 8 and 1 really can have their hands on a winter in our area.
It is a similar setup to last year. So, and we based a lot of that into our forecast too.
Yes, and accounted for that. So, with that said, these are some of the years that we chose. They're called analog years, and it's just a fancy way of saying years that look similar with the setup.
Similar, but not exactly the same.
Yeah, because no two winters are ever. There's always going to be those subtle differences, of course. But I guess
21, 22.
That wasn't a perfect one. I will say, most of the time you want to pick nowadays, just because the atmosphere is in a different place with the warming that has been taking place because of climate change, it's best to not look before 1980. With that said, you can't help but look just for the overall idea, but accounting for the fact that, yes, we might need to air this a little milder and making it relevant to today. So 1964 to 65 was on this list here, but
and it matches.
It does.
Really close with the rest of the.
It does. It seems like, aside from maybe it being a little colder, we'll have to click ahead to see, but not just yet. Okay, maybe so. But I think
back.
Yeah, we'll go back. But I will say 2021 to 2022 was more of a moderate La Nina, so it might just give an idea of how it could stifle snowfall if it were just to happen to get slightly stronger than expected, although I don't think at this point that's a big possibility. But you usually want to have, 4 to 5 analog years, so kind of just to hit that 5 number, I chose this one for that sake. But
and the snow forecast,
yes,
what happened in these years, it's pretty close the whole way through.
Yeah.
This year, 2000 and 2001, also an anomaly, and some of this, in fact, a good bit of this came February of 01.
Yes, hoping for that active February.
So,
and I will say, too, these averages, these were taken December through February. These ones did not account for March, but we do have some numbers to show you about March.
Yes.
Because it will be relevant this year.
Yeah.
I'm kind of jumping ahead and spoiling a little, but
a little bit different than previous years where all of a sudden sometimes we just like snap the spring.
Yes.
That's it. Winter's done. This year, probably not going to be the case.
Nope, not at all. So what we're saying overall for this season, we think snowfall will be near average for once to slightly above average. And we will be more than likely a little milder than last year just because we do have that La Nina on our side in full for at least a portion of the winter. But still to the point where we're either a little below average or near average as far as those temperatures are concerned.
We're kind of banking on getting a decent mid or late January thaw to help us out with these temperatures, because there is the downside potential here where it stays cold a lot like it did last year.
Yes. Moving ahead, we're going to take a look now at our key points for winter coming up. Yes.
Cold start to the year.
That seems very clear. Of everything, I mean, I think that is a good bet at this point. And
looks pretty solid.
Yes, and even in the long-range forecasting, we continue to see the signs. After Thanksgiving, things are going to change.
Yeah, it's starting to show up. We've had these little tastes, over the last couple of weeks where, it's gotten cold. It lasts maybe a day or two and then lifts out. We're seeing it, off and on throughout the month of November.
Yeah.
Some people might be happy about that. A little better shot maybe of a white Christmas this year compared to normal.
Yes, and just by definition, at least in the meteorology world, a white Christmas is an inch of snow depth on the ground on Christmas morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. So it doesn't actually need to snow on Christmas Day. It just needs to hang around.
Technically, it could snow 5 or 6 inches on the 22nd and be 50 and still have an inch of snow on the ground.
Exactly. Yes.
But that's not the right Christmas you want.
I know it's probably not traditionally what everybody thinks, but envisions anyway. But yes, we did mention the mild January swings. We think as we get to the second half of January in particular, we could get some more warm intrusion, which would lead us to more mixed storms, so ice.
What we don't want to see big time. Even if you love snow, you want to go ski, snowboard, and all that good stuff, you don't want the ice. Unfortunately, that becomes a possibility heading into January with the thaw that's going to try and build in.
And then one more very notable thing in our analog years, March in particular, an active finish that did include late February and even snow in March.
Yeah. So we may not be done with the shovels and dealing with colder air and all that good stuff heading into the first month of spring.
Winter's going to want to hang on a little longer than recent years, for sure.
Yeah, so winter weather lovers, skiers, it should be a pretty good year for you. Resorts last year across the whole state
did better.
Did well, and it should be another good year this year too.
Yes, so that's at least the good news for our local businesses and whatnot. Let's take a look at some of the very compelling data that led us to some of those key points. And we will start with December and looking at our average temperatures. Aside from the one analog year, 2021 to 2022, that I said wasn't even one of our best, everything was colder than average. So this just kind of solidifies the fact that we think we will be colder.
Most years are below the average line, and you have a couple in here that are really cold. I guess if you were to take out 2000 and then 21, sitting right in here is, again, looks pretty solid as well. You have your years where sometimes you have your extremes mixed in.
You get your variability there, but what we're looking for are those general themes. It's really difficult to precisely say, December will be 5 degrees colder than average, like that January that we just had. What we get and we look for is more of, what's the flavor going to be?
And it looks chilly.
Yes.
For sure this year. Tell you what, if you heat your house with oil, maybe a good time to get those tanks filled.
Yes.
Do it early. If you use a lot of firewood, get it chopped, get it dried up, because you're probably going to need it more than December this year.
And do it all while it's still warm in November. I mean, and hang up, a lot of people are already putting their outdoor holiday lights and decorations up.
Good time to do that.
Yes, through the end of the month, you want to get that done.
Unless they get blown into the neighbor's yard.
Well, the question too is, you can always have the cold, but will you have snow to show for it? I mean, way more than not here, there was a little bit of December snow. Obviously, 2005 was an outlier year, but more or less, generally speaking, average snowfall, which is about, 4.4 inches.
We're there or a little bit above.
Yep.
And that also gives us, again, that little better chance compared to normal of a white Christmas
Yeah.
this year. I believe across much of the Susquehanna Valley, I think it's maybe every 2 out of 10.
Something like that. It's like roughly a 20%. I know it's a little higher, closer to 30% in, say, Mifflin and possibly
Right.
Juniata counties. I don't remember where the exact lines are drawn. But yeah, generally speaking, that's about right for any given year.
So maybe a 3 in 10 chance this year.
Yes.
The odds are a little bit higher.
Yes.
At least we're not going lower. Those of you that want to see a little white
Exactly.
Christmas.
It's not one of our worst years the last few years, and there were plenty of them. But yeah, here's March snow too, all but one year, and that was 2006. Ironically, that was the year, if I'm not mistaken, that was the year that had the good December snow,
Right.
just to be done with. I mean, through much of the rest of the winter after that.
Started with a bang, ended with a whimper.
Yes,
that year.
that's a good way to put it. But yes, I mean, look at this.
A lot of years were pretty big. And this is just March
Yes.
snowfall. 15 inches back in 84. And not that long ago, 2018,
Yeah.
16. Mm-hmm. So it can certainly still snow in March. I mean, it could still even snow in April.
Yes, well,
But
let's not.
so, March, like we were saying, it becomes a factor this year of
For sure.
putting down some more snow for the entire season.
Yes. All right. So with all of this put together, all of the data, all of the numbers, this is what led up to our expectations. Now, this first map that we're going to show you is just for the winter season alone, and that's going to be December, January, and February. And we think, generally speaking, especially to the north and to the west of Interstate 81, I-81, you're looking at 24 to 36 inches. Near seasonal snowfall. Even for Harrisburg, Gettysburg, Lebanon, 18 to 24 inches. That's near, if not slightly above average. And then York and Lancaster, 12 to 18 inches.
Right. And people ask sometimes, like, well, why is there such a difference between, like, Lewistown and Lancaster?
There can be a huge difference.
It's all topography and
Yep.
geography
Yep.
of it. There's a lot of hilltops through Mifflin and Juniata counties.
And
Conversely, a lot of flatland through Lancaster County.
And that's where we get a lot of the warm air intrusion, too, when we have mixed
Right.
precipitation systems. Over the years, I've seen it firsthand where it can be raining in Lancaster and you have 6 inches in Lewistown.
Right.
So you got to take that into account.
Yeah. And voila, there's our colors.
Yep. Zoom it out, take a wider look here, and we think, generally speaking, Lehigh Valley and northward.
Even down to the coast again this year.
They could
be
get a little
dealing
more
with-
than they're
with
used
snow.
to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another one of those years. And of course, back out to the west, probably going to get crushed back into this area, especially because of lake effect and
Yes.
upslope snow. And,
Yep.
that'll hold true all the way up toward western New York, northwest PA also.
Yes. So this graphic will kind of show it a little more visually here, but we are looking at our range, and we're taking Harrisburg's range specifically here for this graphic. Right near the December to February average, more or less. We think we can easily add 2 to 8 inches, though, for March snow based on our analog years, and that will get us closer to Harrisburg's yearly total, which is just shy of 30 inches on average. So we did do a map just to kind of give an idea when you account for March, what it visually might look like, and these are the numbers here. We think
Yeah.
the heaviest amounts will still be aligned in the same spots you would expect them.
Right.
We don't think it'll add that much variability where we have to kind of nudge these lines maybe a little more one way or another.
Right. And this is not just March snow. This is first flake to last flake, pretty much for the season.
Yeah, it's all cumulative.
Yeah.
Yes, it's if we included March snow in that forecast map you just saw moments ago.
Upwards of potentially on the upper end of the scale, closer to 4 feet of snow. Lewistown, Mifflintown, Port Royal area, and then on the other side of things, York and Shrewsbury to Lancaster, anywhere between a foot to maybe a little over 2.
Yeah, it's just March is going to be the variable that we haven't had to account for since we started
wild
doing
card.
these. Yes.
Tell you what,
Yes.
you end up throwing an extra coastal storm in, and these numbers
Yeah.
could change considerably.
Yes, but with that said, our risk of a big coastal storm still maybe a little better than the last few years, but still low in the grand scheme of things overall with the pattern that we are looking at with the La Nina in place. If we had maybe an El Nino instead.
would certainly help to.
We might have had to have gone
crank-
higher to account for that. Yeah, that potential.
Especially with
but
the weaker PV and all that
Yes.
stuff. Hey, watch out, Virginia Beach might get another snowstorm this year.
Oh, yes. Maybe a little less exciting, the temperatures. I know most people are interested in the snowfall. Oh, that's right. We have to go wide
our
on this
broad
one,
view.
too. Yes, our broad view. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Again, no big changes down here to the coastline, but again, as you go west, parts of the higher elevations in the lower highlands, they could see over 120 to 130 inches of snow for the year, which is just, it's mind-boggling because it's
Lot of
only
snow.
2 hours west, and to get that much more, it's all because of terrain.
Yes, and that makes all the difference here, especially across the state. Incredible. Temperatures here, now we are there. The average seasonal temperature, and just as a disclaimer here, this is specifically December through February, is 33.3 inches. We think we're more or less near or below that average once again, especially banking on the fact that we are pretty certain at this point December is just going to show up cold.
Yeah.
Maybe
And-
not as cold as January earlier this year, but cold enough to help tip that scale lower.
And going probably into the first part of January
too,
until we
yes.
start to get that dreaded mixed bag
Yes.
precip events going on later into the month with our thaw.
Yes, it'll be exciting to see how everything works out because like we said earlier in the stream, we look at analog years, similar years, but no 2 winters are ever exactly the same. They always bring their own little surprises to them.
Right. You can't look back at one year and say, oh, there was a big storm on whatever.
And that's
President's
going
Day.
to happen this
Yeah,
year.
doesn't necessarily mean that.
No.
It's just that the year is similar, the temperatures are similar, and probably the end of the year snowfall similar too.
Yes, I would say out of everything, the December cold and the active end to winter are going to be the key takeaways
Yeah,
here.
big
Those
story
were
this year, for
the
sure.
most notable things in our analog years.
Get your ski passes.
Yes,
for your
for sure.
favorite resort.
It'll be a good
Buy
year
'em
for
this year.
folks who like to do that. All right, but yeah, that'll do it for now, everybody. We appreciate you joining as we kind of nerded out a little here, got into the nitty gritty of how we came to, we don't just throw numbers out there and hope for the best.
It's not a dartboard. It's not
Yes.
a coin flip.
No, there is.
There's real work that goes behind
Yes, there is real work that does go ahead with it. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us on our social media pages. And as always, even if it doesn't go our way, we'll hold ourselves accountable and we'll let you know why and, what ended up being different if it doesn't. So
Yeah. Happy holidays. Happy
Yes.
holidays, everybody.
enjoy. Have a great winter, everybody.